Shalom, 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 people. It's Evan Israel again. I'm back. Now, let's jump straight into it. I'm going through the book of Revelation, showing its historical references that can be found throughout history. I'm using Josephus. Using the book of Josephus to find some correlation between Revelation as well as Josephus being, Revelation being fulfilled using the secular source or the historian Josephus or Joseph, however you want to say his name. I'm going to be pulling some more information. So, with that being said, let's first establish the parameter once again. I'm just going to establish the parameter. What do I have? Using my Holy Bible with the Apocrypha, the New Revised Standard Version. Let's just set the foundation first. Second Ezra, to see what the Bible actually teaches, or what was the purpose of the Bible. Once again, I do not take Second Ezra to be inspired. I take it to be Hebrewic literature. Mr. Bell, I have to talk to you later. Mr. Bell. I'm online right now. I'll talk to you whenever I get off. But I take Second Ezra as as Hebrewic literature. It was created by, I believe, from what I researched, it was 3 different authors at 3 different time periods. So, of course, it can't be inspired. But I want to just go through it to set the foundation up. We have 2 Ezra 2:33, and I didn't hit this already. I'm just setting up the foundation. Therefore, I say to you, O nations, that hear and understand. Wait for your shepherd, which is Christ. He will give you everlasting rest, because he who will come at the end of the age is close at hand. Be ready for the rewards of the kingdom, because perpetual light will shine on you forever. Flee from the shadow of this age, receive the joy of your glory. So now, it says that, and let me give a correlation. 2 Ezra 2, I'm going to look it up in the regular Apocrypha also. 2 Ezra 2 and 33. Is it 2 and 34? How you doing, Mr. Lee? It's all good. It's all good. And I therefore say unto you, O ye heathen, that hear and understand, look for your shepherd. He shall give you everlasting rest, for he is nigh at hand, and he shall come in the end of the world. So here they actually, when they translated it as world here, same way they did in Matthew 24:3. But the real translation would be aeon or age, which they translated it correctly here. So now, and there it says heathen, here it says nation. So this was talking to pretty much the Gentiles. And it's saying that your Savior, which was Christ, is nigh at hand, and he will give you everlasting rest, and he will come at the end of the age. So that age was going to end. Once again, the age was going to end. At the end of that age, before the new age or the new covenant came in, or the new kingdom, the kingdom age, before that came in, first the old age had to end. So Christ came at the end of the age to do what? To make that final atonement for everybody living at the end of the age, for them to be able to go into the kingdom, as well as he set the tone, or he set the standards or the statutes for the new age or the kingdom age. So he did 2 things in one. But let's see what we got here. He's coming. Be ready for the rewards of the kingdom. So now, what can we find that at? Once again, it said that he was coming at the end of the age, and he told them to be ready for the rewards of the kingdom. So once you go to Matthew 16, 27 and 28, it says, the Bible says, "For the Son of Man shall come in the glory of his Father with his angels, and then he shall reward every man according to his works. Verily I say unto you, there be some standing here which shall not taste of death till they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom." So we have the correlation right there. Second Ezra said that he was going to come at the end of the age and give them the rewards. We have a better time statement here when Christ was telling the disciples that end of that age, or his coming, his second coming, the reward of the kingdom was going to be before some of them died, which is first century. That's why we say that the Bible has already been fulfilled. Christ's return was the first century. So now I'm making a correlation that Revelation has been fulfilled. Revelation was fulfilled in the first century. So now let's see if we can make another correlation with Revelation 22 and 12. "And behold," this is what Christ told them to told John to tell the seven churches of Asia. "And behold, I come quickly, and my reward is with me to give every man according as his work shall be." So we have it in Revelation that Christ told the seven churches he was coming quickly. We have in Matthew 16, 27 and 28 that he told the disciples that his coming was going to be during their generation, which they lived during the first century generation under the Roman Empire. So now you go to Daniel 7 and 7. And it sheds a little bit more light on it. Daniel 7 and 7. Daniel 7 and 7. "And this I saw in the night vision, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. That was Rome, and during the Roman Empire," verse number 10, "a fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. Thousands ministered unto him, and 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The judgment was set, and the books were opened." This happens during the Roman Empire, or the first century. The first century. You go to Revelation 20. And 12. "And I saw the dead, small and great, stand before God, and the books were open, and another book were open, which is the book of life, and the dead were judged out of those things which were written in the books according to their works." So we have everything dealing with the books being opened in Judgment Day and the end of the age all occurring during the same time, which was the first century. So now the Bible actually tells you what event that all occurred at. So now can we... before we hit, what else did I need to hit? Before we hit that, let's go back into Second Ezra also. Before we hit that event, let's go to Second Ezra, and I think I highlighted it. If I didn't, I'm gonna have to go into the other one. The Second Ezra right here, chapter 11, which is the vision of the eagle, and this is verse 39. "Are you not the one that remained of the four beasts that I had made to reign in my world?" So this is the Most High talking to Rome right now. He's telling Rome that he made Rome to reign in his world, so that the end of my times might come through them. So the end of the age was to come through Rome rulership. Esau is the end of the world. Jacob is the beginning of the world to follow. Esau intermingled in and was conquered by Rome, and they became one empire. So Rome would be Esau. Esau or Edom will be Rome. Rome came at the end of the age as designed or designated by the Most High. And let's see right here. The Most High has looked at his times. This is verse 44. The Most High has looked at his times, now they have ended, and his ages have reached completion. Therefore, you eagle will surely disappear, you and your terrifying wings, your most evil little wings, your malicious heads, your most evil talents, your whole worthless body, so that the whole earth, freed from your violence, may be refreshed and relieved, and may hope for the judgment and mercy of him who made it. So after the Roman Empire, there was hoping for the judgment and mercy from the Most High. So now we see that the Roman Empire was created by the Most High for all of the ages to come to an end. We have it right here that the Most High is saying the ages have reached completion. So then once you go into, once again, the Bible teaches the end of the age, not the end of the world. The world is never meant to end, only the age. So now, once you go into 2nd Ezra 14 and 11, you see it right here. For the age is divided into 12 parts, and 9 of its parts have already passed, as well as half of the 10th part. So by the time Ezra was on the scene, 9.5 parts was already gone from the end of the age. There only left 2.5 parts left. That's not going to get you to 2019, people. Those parts will be way longer than the rest of the parts, ever. So by Ezra, look in your Bible, by the time Ezra was on the scene, 9.5 parts of the earth or of that age has already came about. So the 2.5 parts will get you up to Christ. So now, hopefully we have the background built on the end of the age what the Bible actually teaches. The age was going to come to the end, not the world. How you doing, Demetrius? Shalom. Hey, I still ain't got my headphones yet. I'm going to get them eventually. But Matthew 24:3. This is why this is why Christ was able to have this discussion in the 1st century under the Roman Empire. Matthew 24:1. And Jesus came out of the temple and was going away. His disciples came to point out to him the buildings of the temple. Then he asked them, you see all these? Do you not? Truly I tell you, not one stone will be left here upon another. All will be thrown down. When he was sitting on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, tell us, when will these things be? And what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age? So now, the disciples understood that the destruction of the temple was going to result in the end of the age. When the age ended, that ended the old covenant under Moses, that ended sin, death, that brought up the resurrection, that brought in the new heavens and earth, that brought in the new covenant. That's all we need to hit right now. But we see signs of the end of the age. So that's what everybody was building up to out of the Tanakh, out of the Torah. The Torah and the Tanakh was building up to Christ, ending that age under those first 5 or 6 covenants, and starting the new covenant, which was going to be an everlasting covenant. No covenant was superseded, no covenant coming after it. It was the main covenant. They was all waiting on that covenant in which they could be in unison or be back with the Most High, tabernacling with man, and man being a part of the Most High. That's what everybody was waiting on. Throughout the whole Bible, that was the point. When was this age going to end and the new age begin? We have Christ right here giving them the time. The age was going to end during the destruction of the temple. Some things was going to happen in the spiritual realm. Some things was happening in the physical realm. While Rome was destroying Jerusalem, here on the physical realm, getting rid of the Mosaic covenant, destroying the Levitical priesthood, destroying all genealogy records, taking them into captivity, ending the curses of Deuteronomy. While Rome was on this plane, on the terrestrial plane, doing those actions, the resurrection, the great white throne judgment, and Christ getting the everlasting kingdom was occurring at the same time in the heavenly realm or the celestial realm. So it was two events happening at one time. That's what Revelation is all about. Revelation is going from what's going on in heaven back to what's going on earth. That's why you're seeing the correlations. Sometimes we have the angels speaking of from a heavenly temple. Sometimes we got people speaking of from the earthly temple. We have two different things going on at one time. Christ's second coming was not him literally coming out of the sky. Just like his father, when the Most High came to earth to visit man, he visited through an army. He used the Gentile armies in order to show judgment upon the nations of the world. Christ did the exact same thing. His second coming was the Roman army coming to destroy Jerusalem and doing away with the Mosaic covenant. That was Christ's second coming was through the Roman army. That was his presence, his parousia. It was through the Roman army. He never was meant to come himself personally down to earth and say, hey, look at me, I'm Christ, and let me kill everybody on earth. That's never what the plan was. That's something that people in the Western world created because they don't understand Eastern spirituality. And I didn't understand it until I researched it over and over. Had a great mentor, Mr. William Bell. Even what he said, I still had to go through and research it over and over and over for myself until I got a hold of all of the Hebrew literature and studied it and understand, for the most part, how they saw things and how they taught. So now, Christ's second coming was through the Roman army. So when he said, they will look on me whom they have pierced, the Roman army was a representation of him. So when they looked upon the Roman army, they was looking upon him whom they had pierced. That's how it worked. People might not like it. People might argue against it. People can do all they want to and say all of the things that they want to say. That's not going to change the fact. That's what the Bible teaches. And that's how the people of the antiquity of the old world would have understood it. So now, let's go back to Josephus, which is the historian. He was a high priest then, or he was a priest back then, and he actually lived during the raid in 70 A.D. So now, I'm saying that the end of everything came about in 70 A.D. The end of everything came about in 70 A.D. We are in the new covenant, and the new kingdom of heaven is on earth right now. It's a mindset, and it's also a celestial plane also. That's why people can have these near-death experiences, and they say they go into heaven instead of going into Sheol. You know, who was that? When Saul had that witch go look for Samuel. Samuel was in Sheol. That's why when people now, when they die, have these near-death experiences, they go into the heavenly realm. They don't go into Sheol no more. Sheol was closed. It was thrown away. It was cast into the fire. That's what Revelation speaks of. No more separation from the Father. So now, I'm saying that Revelation is fulfilled, and we can find the fulfillment in the book of Josephus dealing with the war of the Jews, which occurred during 70 AD. So now, I'm going to make some alignments. Once again, I have this in PDF form. If you would like the PDF, it's over 900 pages dealing with prophecy. If you want the PDF and actually know what the Bible teaches instead of what these people are trying to tell you, that doesn't make any sense at all. They tell you that you're under the law of Moses, but you don't have no temple. You don't have no records of who your genealogy is. The only thing you can do is guess. You have no way to atone for sins. You can do no feast. You can do no sacrifices. You can't do nothing that the law of Moses require you to do besides keep the commandments, the 10 commandments. And it's all about 613 laws, statutes, and commandments, and judgments and ordinances that you have to do in order to be under that covenant. When our ancestors said, yes, this is the covenant they wanted, the Most High didn't say, okay, do this covenant to the best of your abilities. He never said that. So quit letting people teach you that you are in the Mosaic covenant still. There's a reason why the Most High had you be born in this era instead of that era. This era right here is the era of the new covenant, of freedom. You wasn't born in the era of bondage. You was born after Christ's atonement. Enjoy it. But now, let's start making some more correlations again. I want to start what I stopped off yesterday. Revelation 16, 3 through 6, the second and third bowls. So now, let's read it. Revelation 16. Hopefully I built the whole stage up for people to understand that the Bible has been fulfilled. Everything has been fulfilled. There's no need to play like America is Babylon and all that stuff. Everything has been fulfilled. So now, Revelation 16, 3 through 6. And the second angel poured out his vial upon the sea, and it became as blood of a dead man, and every living soul died. And the third angel poured out his vial upon the rivers and fountains of waters, and they became as blood. And I heard the angel of the water say, Thou art righteous, O Lord, which thou art, and was, and shall be, because thou hast judged thus. For they have shed the blood of the saints and prophets, and thou hast given them blood to drink, for they are worthy. Now, who shed the blood of the saints and the prophets? Who did that? Who shed the blood of the saints and the prophets? Who is the Most High judging right now to shed the blood of the saints and the prophets? Matthew 23 and 34 and 5. Wherefore, behold, I send unto you prophets and wise men and scribes, and some of them you should kill and crucify, and some of them you should scourge in your synagogues and persecute them from city to city, that upon you may come all the righteous blood that was shed upon the earth, from the blood of righteous Abel unto the blood of Zechariah son of Berechias, whom you slew between the temple and the altar. Verily I say unto you, all these things shall come upon this generation. O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, that killeth the prophets. So now we see a prophecy right here that all of the vengeance of the Most High was going to come upon that generation. We see the fulfillment in Revelation, and we see the fulfillment in Josephus. That's why the temple was destroyed. That's why the Roman army, who was in control of ruling the world until the end of the age, came about to destroy Jerusalem. So we know that this is a judgment against Jerusalem. They're the one who killed the prophets. See, they have shed the blood of saints and prophets. So we read it just right there in Matthew 23. It's not America, y'all. Don't let people teach you off the Bible. It's Jerusalem. Oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, that killest the prophets. Okay, so this was a judgment against Jerusalem. So now let's see what happened. Page 821. War of the Jews, Book 4, Chapter 7, Section 5, and you see the verses I'm reading, 429, which came to pass accordingly, for as they were crowding together at the wall, the Roman horsemen were ready to fall in them. 430. When the useless multitude were destroyed, but those that were more potent ran away, and the soldiers plundered the houses and set the village on fire. As for those that ran out of the village, they stirred up such as were in the country, and exaggerating their own calamities, and telling them that the whole army of the Romans were upon them. So they put them into great fear on every side. So they got in great numbers together and fled to Jericho, for they knew no other place that could afford them any hope of escaping, it being a city that had a strong wall and a great multitude of inhabitants. But Placidius, relying much upon his horsemen and his former good success, followed them and slew all that he overtook as far as Jordan. And when he had driven the whole multitude to the riverside, where they had been stopped by the current, for it had been augmented lately by rains and was not fordable, and he put his soldiers in array over against them. So the necessity, the others were in provoked them to a hazard battle, because there was no place whither they could flee. Then they extended themselves a great way along the banks of the river, and sustained the darts that were thrown at them, as well as the attacks of the horsemen, who beat many of them and pushed them into the current, at which fight hand to hand 15,000 of them were slain, while the number of those that were unwillingly forced to leap into the Jordan was prodigious. Or I don't know. Prodigious, yeah. Prodigious, no, that's it. 6. Section 6. Now this destruction that fell upon the Jews, as it was not inferior to any of the rest in itself, so did it still appear greatly than it really was. And this because not only the whole of the country through which they had fled was filled with slaughter, and Jordan could not be passed over by the reason of dead bodies that were in it, but because the lake Asphaltis was also full of dead bodies that carried down into by the river. He then put his soldiers on board the ships and slew such as had fled to the lake, insomuch that all Perea had either surrendered themselves or were taken by the Romans as far as Maturus. Now these words is getting me, but as we can see that 15,000 people were killed and thrown into the water, into the river, into the lakes. And it said it was so many bodies that a person, anyone, could not cross over the Jordan River because of the amount of bodies were stacked up. And the second angel poured out his vial upon the sea, and it became as blood of a dead man, and every living soul died in the sea. And the third angel poured out his vial upon the rivers and fountains of water, and they became blood. And I heard the angels of the waters say, Thou art righteous, O Lord, which art, and wast, and shall be, because thou hast judged thus. So, what's up, Kenneth? How you doing, brother? How you doing? So now, we see another trumpet being played out. And that happened in April through May 68 AD. Now we have Revelation, the 7th bowl. Revelation 16 and 19. Revelation 16 and 19. And the great city was divided into 3 parts, and the cities of the nations fell. And great Babylon came in remembrance before God, to give unto her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. So now, we got to find where the city, Babylon, which is Jerusalem, fell into 3 parts. We got to go to War of the Jews, Book 5, Section 1, Chapter 1, Section 1. Book 5, Chapter 1, Section 1. And I have a quote here. I'm going to show you the quote, and then I'm going to go to the other one. Verse 3. Now as to the attack the zealots made upon the people, in which I esteem the beginning of the city's destruction. It hath been already explained after an accurate manner, as also whence it arose, and how great a mischief it was increased. But for the present sedition, one should not mistake if he called it a sedition, begotten by another sedition, and to be like a wild beast grown mad, which for want of food from abroad fell now upon eating its own flesh. So now we just have a pretty much symbolic. Josephus, he was a Jew. He spoke like Jews. So he was giving symbolism in language. He was saying there was so many things happening at one time. It seems like it was like the city was like a mad beast going around looking for food. And since it couldn't find food, it started eating its own flesh. That's how the people were when they was turning on each other. But once we go to Revelation 17-16, and the 10 horns which thou sawest maketh the beast, and the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, thou shalt hate the whore, and shalt make her desolate and naked, and shalt eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. So we have more symbolism talking about what the zealots were doing in Jerusalem. While they were destroying Jerusalem themselves, they were putting it on fire. They was doing all of their other things. But now, I'm going to read one, because remember, we were starting off with after the earthquake, the city fell into 3 parts, or divided into 3 parts. Let me go to 1. When therefore Titus had marched over the desert, which lies between Egypt and Syria, in the manner forementioned, he came to Caesarea, having resolved to set his forces in order at the place before he began the war. Nay, indeed, while he was assisting his father at Alexandria in settling the government, which had been newly conferred upon them by God, it so happened that the sedition at Jerusalem was revived and parted into 3 factions. The sedition started back in Jerusalem again and parted into 3 factions. Once again, Revelation 16 and 19. And the great city was divided into 3 parts, and the cities of the nations fell, and great Babylon came into remembrance before God to give unto her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. So we got the city falling into 3 parts right here. And now, if that's not enough, we'll keep reading. War of the Jews, book 5, chapter 1, section 4. And now, there were 3 treacherous factions in the city. The one parted from the other. Eleazar, I think it's Eleazar, and his party that kept the sacred first fruits came against John and their cups. Those that were with John plundered the populace and went out with zeal against Simon. This Simon had his supply of provisions from the city in opposition to the seditious. When therefore John was assaulted on both sides, he made his men turn about, throwing the darts upon those citizens that came up against him from the cloisters he had in his possessions, while he opposed those that attacked him from the temple by his engines of war. And if any time he was freed from those that were above him, which happened frequently, from their being drunk and tired, he sallied out with a great number upon Simon and his party. And this he did always in such parts of the city as he could at, till he set on fire those houses that were full of corn and of all provisions. The same thing was done by Simon. When also the others retreated, he attacked the city also, as if they had on purpose done it to serve the Romans, by destroying what the city had laid up against the siege, and by thus cutting off the nerves of their power. Accordingly, it so came to pass that all the places that were about the temple were burnt down and were become an intermediate desert space, ready for fighting on both sides, that almost all the corn was burnt, which would have been sufficient for a siege of many years. So they were taken by the means of the famine, which it was impossible that they should have been, unless they had thus prepared the way for it by this procedure. So now you have Israel, or sorry, you have Jerusalem being broken up into three factions within itself. And those factions was actually fighting against themselves. They was fighting against each other inside of Jerusalem, while on the outside of Jerusalem, you had the Roman army had Jerusalem encompassed. So as good as they felt, while they were fighting each other, they destroyed all of the food that they had stored up that should have lasted them for years. They destroyed all of the food, all of the water that they had stored up, which caused the famine inside of Jerusalem, which is why that woman was caught by Josephus eating her child, which is actually one of the curses of Deuteronomy 28. So, that's another part of Revelation being fulfilled within Josephus. So, let's go to Revelation 16 and 21, the seventh bowl. Revelation 16 and 21 says, "And there fell upon men a great hail out of heaven, every stone about the weight of a talent. And men blasphemed God because of the plague of the hail, for the plague thereof was exceedingly great." Page 851. So now we got hailstones coming out of the sky that weighs a talent. So now, War of the Jews, chapter 6. Book 6. War of the Jews, book 5, chapter 6, section 3. And I'm going to start around verse 269. "Now those that were at work covered themselves with hurdles, spreading over their bank, and their engines were opposed to them when they had made their excursions. The engines that all the legions had ready prepared for them were admirably contrived, but still more extraordinary ones belonged to those 10th legions. Those that threw darts and those that threw stones were more forcible and larger than the rest, by which they not only repelled the excursions of the Jews, but drove those away that were upon the walls also." Look at this, verse 270. "Now the stones that were cast were of the weight of a talent, and were carried 2 furlongs and farther. The blow they gave was no way to be sustained, not only by those that stood first in the way, but those that were beyond them for a great space. And for the Jews that at first watched the coming of the stone, for it was of a white color, and could therefore not only be perceived by the great noise it made, but could be seen also because of it came by its brightness. Look, it looks like bright, fiery stones coming from heavens. Accordingly, the watchmen that sat up on the towers gave them notice when the engine was let go, and the stone came from it. Then they cried aloud in their own country's language. Look what they're crying out. Once again, let's look what they cried out. This is what they cried out in Hebrew. The sun cometh. It don't have nothing down there that explains that's a mistranslation. So now, I can only think of one son that they're talking about is coming. Once again, Josephus wasn't a Christian. He was a Jew. So he's taking this from a Jewish mindset. He's not taking this from a prophecy being fulfilled mindset. He's just writing down what he saw. So When those stones, look, brightness, the brightness was coming out of the air, and they said, the sun cometh. So those that were with it in his way stood off. And eventually they colored those stones black so the Jews cannot see them. But we have them being destroyed by the brightness of the coming of the sun. We got that. And we also got the hailstones coming from the heavens, which actually was what was being thrown by the engines or the catapults of the Roman army. That's pretty much the warfare that they had, the machines they had. But anyway, we have the stones being cast into Jerusalem that weighed a talent. We got the hailstones that weighed a talent, and we got the brightness of the sun coming to destroy. And what do we got right here? And there fell upon the man a great hail out of heaven, every stone. So we know they're talking about stones. Now the stones, every stone about the weight of a talent. These stones were a weight of a talent. So what more do y'all need to see that Josephus, what was going on in 70 AD, dealing with Josephus, is what Revelation is all about, which is what the prophecy of Christ is all about. 70 AD. It's not about what anything anybody else is saying. So now, I want to hit this last verse, Revelation 17, 12 through 17. And I'm just showing y'all fulfillment through secular history of Revelation. Revelation 17, 12 through 17. I don't think I hit this one yet. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings which have received no kingdom as of yet, but receive power as king, one hour with the beast. These have one mind that they should give their power and strength to the beast. They shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them, for he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and they are with him are called chosen and faithful. And he said unto them, the waters which thou sawest, where the horse sitteth, are people, and the multitudes and nations and tongues. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, that shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. For God has put it in their hearts to fulfill his will, and to agree and give their kingdom unto the beast, until the words of God shall be fulfilled. And the woman which thou sawest is the great city, which is Jerusalem, which reigneth over the kings of the earth. So now, let's go to the War of the Jews. Book 2, chapter 20. Sections 3 and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, now, let me read 3. But as those who had pursued after Cestius, when they were returned back to Jerusalem, they overbore some of those that favored the Romans by violence, and some they persuaded by intrigues to join with them, and got together in great numbers in the temple, and appointed a great many generals for the war. Joseph, also the son of Gorion, and Ananus, the high priest, was chosen as governors of all affairs within the cities, and with a particular charge to repair the walls of the city. For they did not ordain Eleazar, the son of Simon, to the office. So now, he's not part of them. So we got 2 right here. We got Joseph and we got Ananus. Verse 4. They also chose other generals for Idumea, Jesus the son of Saphias, one of the high priests, and Eleazar, the son of Ananias, the high priest, and also enjoined Niger, the then governor of Idumea. And then I just get right there. Nor did they neglect the care of other parts of the country. But Joseph, the son of Simon, was sent as a general to Jericho, and Manasseh to Perea, and John the Essene to the toparchy of Thamna. Lydia was also added to his portion, and Joppa, and Emmaus. See, I thought that was names, but these was actually name of places. That's why I marked them out. That's why I marked him out, because he wasn't included. But John, the son of Matthias, was made the governor of the toparchies of Gophoenicia and Acrabathene, as was Josephus, the son of Matthias, of both of the Galilees. Galma also, which was the strongest city in those parts, was put under his command. So every one of the other commanders administered the affairs of his portion with the alacrity and prudence that were the masters thereof. So anyway, it was 10, right? So let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So you got your 10 right there. Let me turn back around. So, what more do we need? And once again, I have this in PDF format. Inbox me and I'll send you all the information. But we got the 10 case studies of Revelation added number 3. Here's an updated chart comparing Josephus and the book of Revelation. Now, this is not my information. I'm just actually just reteaching it. I'm actually reteaching it because a lot of us lack this information. So, I have a lot of commentaries. And what I'm going through right now, I'm actually going through the book of Josephus to see what else is left. But then we have, you see the correlations between Revelation, Ezekiel, and the Revelation. But, I mean, it's so outstanding. It's all good, everybody. But it's so outstanding how we can find the fulfillment of Revelation inside. And now, there's other stuff that I can show you also. Let's see if I can get to it. Just to show you a few things. What I'm finding out. Let's see. Matthew 24:15. When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place. Whosoever readeth, let him understand. Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains. Right? We know that about the abomination of desolations standing in the holy place. Right? So the other one is 2 Thessalonians. Now I haven't made it. It's a lot of books, so I'm just now on book 2. But let me show you just a few maybe correlations. Hold on, let me get to 2 Thessalonians real fast. Hopefully I ain't going the wrong way. Might be. Colossians. There we go right here. 2 Thessalonians. Now what is it? 2 Thessalonians 2 and maybe 3 and 4. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come except there come a falling away first, and that Son of Man be revealed, the son of perdition, who opposes and exalted himself above all that is called God or that is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple, showing himself that he is God. So now, I'm just trying to show you a correlation. Not saying this is 100% on right now, but I'm showing you a correlation. Josephus' War of the Jews, chapter 9. And 2. Now Pilate, who was sent as a procurator into Judea by Tiberius, sent by night those images of Caesar that are called ensigns into Jerusalem. This excited a great tumult among the Jews when it was day, for those that were near them were astonished at the sight of them, as indications that their laws were trodden underfoot, for those laws do not permit any sort of image to be brought into the city. Nay, besides the indignation which the citizens themselves had at the procedure, a vast number of people came running out of the country. These came zealously to Pilate to Caesarea and besought him to carry those ensigns out of Jerusalem and preserve them their ancient laws inviolably. 3. All by agreement at once encompassed the Jews with their weapons. So the band of soldiers stood around about the Jews, 3 in rank. But let's see here. I believe it says somewhere. Hold on. Let me find it, because it says somewhere that to other nations. Oh, well, let's go to chapter 10 now. Now, Claudius, what is it? Cassius? Now, Cassius, Caesar, did so grossly abuse the fortune he had arrived at, as to take himself to be a god, and to desire to be called also. So he was saying he was a god, and he had the people call him a god, and to cut off those of the greatest nobility out of his country. He also extended his impiety as far as the Jews. Accordingly, he sent Petronius with an army to Jerusalem to place his statue in the temple, and commanded him that in case the Jews would not admit of them, he should slay those that opposed it and carry all the rest of the nation into captivity. Now to the Jews, some of them could not believe the stories that spoke of a war. Remember, we got the wars, we got the rumors of wars, we got the abomination of desolation, we got it all. But those who did not believe them were in utmost distress how to defend themselves. And terror diffused itself presently through them all, for the army was already come to, what's that, Ptolemais. Now, section 3. And when he went forward to Galilee and called together the multitude of all men of note to Tiberius, and showed them the power of the Romans and the threatenings of Caesar, and besides this, proved that their petition was unreasonable, because while all the nations in subjection to them had placed the images of Caesar in their several cities among the rest of their gods. So now we have right here that all of the nations that were in subjection to Rome. Hold on, y'all. Give me 1 second. Sorry, y'all.